Hello, this is Asher. I would like to welcome you back. I would like to introduce you to David Ben Moshe. He is our in-house scholar on Islam. David, what would you like to say about Islam today?
I wish I didn't have to speak about Islam, but Islam is the biggest threat in the world. Just a couple of centuries ago, the Prime Minister of England, William Gladstone, one of the most famous prime ministers England ever had, held up a Quran in Parliament and said, as long as this book exists, nobody in the world is safe. And you can see what England is doing today. They didn't heed his words. They brought the Muslims right to their country. So much so that London is now a Muslim city. And you have plenty of no-go zones. An American young woman who works in England has an apartment in London, and she can't even go out in the daytime. She has to go out with her roommate to protect her so that there's at least two of them walking to work and walking home from work and going grocery shopping because these Muslims will kill you. They will not only kill you, they will chop off your head after they rape you. And this isn't a crime in Islam. You're an infidel to them, and as a woman, you're considered less than cattle. So, how did Islam get like this? Well, Muhammad thought he was going to be the Jewish Messiah, and the Jews of Yathrib, which I believe is now Medina, laughed at him. But he went to Medina and they laughed at him. And he then went to Mecca, his hometown where he was born, and he described his religion, which is a perverted view of the Bible. And I'll give you one of the perversions. You all know the story of Adam and Eve, where Eve was tempted by a serpent to eat the fruit of the forbidden tree. A lot of people say an apple, but I think it actually says the fruit of the forbidden tree. And of course, she ate the apple. The Quran, in one of their non-violent verses, and these were the surahs or chapters written in Mecca, and these are not violent, they're just perversions of the Bible. It says, Eve made the tree bleed, which is why women bleed and are stupid. That's the Quran's version of Adam and Eve. Well, the Meccans laughed at him too. So he went back to Medina and was preaching, 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 and got enough to raise an army because he was promising them wealth where they could plunder and rape women. And any man that stood in their way, just chop their heads off. So his first attack was at Badr, Badr, and he attacked a caravan there, killing all the men. Any man over 12 years old, he let the younger ones live. He threw them into a pit, and as his servants, his soldiers were killing the, these caravan people, they'd kill a few, throw them into the pit, and Muhammad would go over and spit on them. And this is how the religion began. And if you read the Medina surahs, chapters, which came later, these are all the violent scriptures. And if you want to read a Quran, we encourage you to do that so you know that we're not making anything up. But the only thing you have to watch out for is you should be reading a pre-1990 translation because they softened up the translation a little bit because they knew we were starting to get onto them. So all of a sudden, killing the infidels is now killing the pagans and the heathens. And the people of the book are still the people of the Bible. And that's what Muhammad called us and Christians, during his Meccan surahs. But the Medina surahs said, take not a Jew and a Christian for your friends, for they are but friends with each other. Now, you could read surah after surah, and I think your eyes will start spinning in circles because the book makes absolutely no sense. You can
Okay,
tell it,
um, can I interject a couple of
sure.
thoughts from what I know about Islam? First of all, what happens is The Quran is really almost an interpretation of our Mishnah, which is an interpretation of the Torah, but kind of inverted upside down. And how could the question is how can an illiterate, ignorant Arab living in the Arabian Peninsula have such knowledge of the Mishnah to be able to come up with the Quran? And the answer to that is that he, under duress, grabbed a rabbi, threatened his life to write him the Quran. And what he did was, after he wrote the Quran for him, he threw him into a well. And over there, the Arabs took rocks and threw it into the well to bury this rabbi and the secrets of the Quran. So every year now, the Arabs have this, in one of their holidays, this practice of taking rocks and throwing it into a well. But it could be foregone as a legend. Maybe it is a legend, maybe it is true, but it's things that has been transmitted to me over the years while I was living in Israel about Islam. But that's not the point. The point I'm trying to get at is, David, if I will try to bind you into a contract, and the contract is going to be a contract that has something to do with your life. It's going to improve your life, per se. And I start the contract with three words. And the three words is blah, 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 blah. That's like those are the three words. Okay. But you don't understand what the three words blah, 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 blah is. But you like the rest of the story. So I'm going to bind you into this contract. Are you going to sign a contract that's going to permanently affect your life, not knowing what blah, blah, blah it means?
Only an idiot would.
Okay. So only an idiot would. All right. Okay. Now, what happens is when you open up the Quran, you have the very first page, a word called Alam. I guess in English it'll be ALM. In Arabic, it's Aleph Lamed Mim, Alam. In Hebrew, it's Aleph Lamed Mem. Okay, so what? So when you ask any Islamic cleric, what does that word means, Alam? They don't know. They say it's a secret word between Muhammad, the Prophet Muhammad, and Allah. That's what it is. It's a secret word. But this is a book of Revelation. Supposedly, the Quran is a book of Revelation, but it has a secret word in it. Now, who would want to join their lives into a book that's secrecy? What is a secrecy? Is secrecy does secrecy does it show truth, or does it have something to hide? If I have a secret, am I hiding the truth, or am I exposing the truth to the world? There's a secret. Nobody knows what the secret is. So am I hiding something, or am I exposing something? Am I revealing the truths of life? So what
Uh,
is it?
Talking about a contract, that's in the Quran too, that no contract is binding with infidels. So when the Muslims sign a peace deal, they don't have to stick to it because, say, that peace deal was brought about by President Trump. They don't have to keep their word
No,
because
they
they're
don't. But
dealing
that's
with
how,
Israel who are infidels.
so that's not what I was getting at.
I know, but you mentioned contracts, so I
Yeah,
just thought
right. No, that's fine. So essentially, what happens is, here you have 1.6 billion people growing, taking on a religion that has a secret in it that nobody knows what the secret is, but they decided they're going to go ahead and pour their lives into it. Okay? Now, I'm going to tell you what Allah means. What happens is Jews were forbidden by Christians that dominated the area, and later on by the Muslims, from practicing in reading the Torah. For the Jews to take out our holy books and to practice the Torah, it would meet the punishment of death. So we were not able to do that. So the only thing we were able to do is maybe read from the book of our prophets, but we were forced to read by the books of the heathens, the pagans, which were the Arabs and the Christians themselves. We had no choice. So what the rabbis did in those days, who wrote the Quran, that the rabbi, he put in the letters ALM or Aleph Lamed Mem in front of it to show all the Jews who open up the book that this book has no truth in it. In Hebrew, Aleph Lamed Mem means En Lo Mashiach, which means there is no Messiah in this book. So the Jews knew because Jews had to create acronyms and different kind of signs and to avoid certain scriptures that had nothing to do with the Torah. Otherwise they would be easily converted into this new religion. So Aleph Lamed Mem is not a secret. It's a secret to the ignoramuses, but it was not a secret to the Jews who were living at that time in the Arabian Peninsula and in those areas that you see that ALM, Aleph Lamed Mem, you do not read this book. There's no Messiah in it. It's nothing but peck of lies.
And those are its good points.
But pick up any Quran. That's what it starts with. Aleph Lamed Mem and Lo Mashiach. There's no
Well,
Messiah there.
well, if you read the Medina surahs, after that auspicious start, if you read the Medina surahs, these are nothing but commands to kill. If you look at 9:12, it says, after the sacred months have passed, lie in wait and attack the infidels using every stratagem of war. 5:33, 8:12, and 47:4 are the commands in the Quran to chop off the heads of the infidels. The actual translation says smite them high on the neck, but that works out to chop off their heads. And this is the book. Anybody who won't convert, anybody who leaves Islam, their life isn't worth 2 cents because they are to be killed. And this is throughout the Medina surahs. And the Medina surahs are not at the back of the book, even though the Meccan surahs are first. It looks like the surahs were stapled together, each surah, the pages in each surah. It was thrown up in the air, and however they landed, that's how it was picked up and put back in the book. There's no timeline. One of the earliest surahs is about killing. It's not even a perversion of the Bible. And if you look at the surah after surah after surah, it looks like it goes from the largest surah to the smallest at the end of the Quran. And the thing is, it's an insane rant. If you want to read something better to understand Islam, read the Hadith. It's just as insane, but at least it's in order and it has meaning. It's a history, plus the commands to kill are in there. Now, I don't understand how blacks in Africa become Muslims, because if you read these books, you will see Muhammad didn't like blacks. There was one black he called a black rascal, and he had his tongue cut out. And it mentions blacks a few times, and yet the blacks become Muslims because they don't want to become Jewish or Christian, because those are white religions, and they're doing this to spite us and to make us fear them. Because in Islam, you can murder. And if you can't murder, if you don't have it in you to be a murderer, it's okay. Muhammad says, if you can't kill, that's fine, but you must support the families of those who do kill. So when you see them attack us, and why didn't they attack us in the past? It's because they didn't have the trillions in petrodollars they have now. Now they have the money to act out on their insanity. And you have more and more Muslims calling for global intifada, global jihad. So it's not just Israel. In Africa, they're lining up black Christians and chopping their heads off or shooting them in the back of the head and then chopping their heads off. In the Philippines, they're chopping the breasts off of nuns and the heads off of priests. That's in the northwestern province where the Moros are. They're Islamic. So they're killing Christian dignitaries of the church, of the Catholic Church. And in China, they started to make a fuss and they started to cause trouble. But China said Islam is a mental disease and has to be eradicated. And they knew how to take care of their Muslims. Unlike us, you remember 9/11 when they flew planes into our buildings and took the towers down? And if you want to know about Building 7, all the burning debris from the much taller buildings fell on Building 7. So Silverstein, who owned the building, said, pull it, which meant take that building down because nobody can occupy it anymore. If all that debris fell on the building, would you want to work in it knowing it was no longer safe? So they took Building 7 down, but it was actually damaged beyond repair because of what happened on Buildings 1 and 2. So the Muslims attacked there, and shortly after, a young man took a small single-engine plane and flew it into a small office building. His last name was Bashara. So the Muslims are attacking us. They attacked us at the Cole and Kobar Towers, and Bill Clinton, all he did was promise justice. Well, I want to tell you a little story. FBI agent John O'Neill, we were working with him and we advised him on Islamic terror. And he kept saying, no, no, they know we're watching the World Trade Center after that first bombing. And he said, next time they're going to probably attack the Empire State Building. And we told him, no, it's going to be the World Trade Center again. As a bomber, when you find out you can't take the building down with your first attempt, you're going to wait till nobody's looking and try a different way to take those buildings down. Well, John O'Neill was promoted and put on the Cole and Kobar Tower investigation. And when he came back to America, he called us and said he quit the FBI because Clinton hindered his every move and George Bush killed the investigation altogether when it led back to the Saudi royal family. So these Muslims, they're all together. There's no such thing as various countries. Europe put them in various countries. They're Muslims. You're either Sunni or Shia. Well, John O'Neill told us he was taking the job of head of security in the World Trade Center. And we warned him, the buildings are coming down. And he said, no, no, they know we're watching. He was killed on the first day on the job. And his salary was pretty good. This is going back 25 years. His salary was $335,000 for being head of security in the World Trade Center. So you have Muslims, and you saw in England, they've blown up subway stations, they've blown up British buses. They killed a soldier on leave, chopped him up into bits. In Egypt, there was a Jewish temple, and the Muslims went in and they chopped the teenage boys into bits. Every Jewish temple should have an armed guard outside, maybe one inside and one outside. That's the way to protect yourselves. As
Well,
Rabbi Kahana, a right-wing rabbi, used to say, every Jew a 22. Well, there's a caliber a little bigger. It's not used that much. Every Jew a 32.
there's a caliber a little bit bigger than that. It's
But
going
it
to
doesn't
be,
rhyme.
believe me, when you use it, the whole world will rhyme along with it. It's every Jew a 357 Magnum, and that's where with the 357 Magnum, believe me, you're going to have the world turning very polite. One of the reasons that I say is that why the world loves to attack Jews is because we're peaceful people. We do not want to harm anybody, and that's been our nature from biblical times. Even when God told us to wipe out Amalek and wipe out all the Canaanites and wipe out all the other ancient civilizations on the way into the land of Canaan, the Jews wouldn't do it. They just didn't listen to God. So we've always had this soft spot as far as killings. Now, what happens is that how many people do you know will go out and attack a Russian? If somebody goes and attacks a Russian, you know that Putin is going to end up cutting their heads off. Israel is not going to do that. The Jews are not going to go out and cut anybody's heads off. But maybe the Jews have to start shooting back. They have to start instead of being always playing on the defensive. Maybe it's time for the Jews to be on the offensive. And when people approach them, these Muslims and these anti-Semites, it's time for the Jews to draw out their guns and kill them to show the world that we are not going to take this any longer. This is the end of it. It's because this is a continuation of the war against the Jews. And it was not started by the Christians. It was not started by the Muslims. It was started during ancient times. As I was telling Ashadina, that the first sign of anti-Semitism was during the time when, after Joseph died and the new Pharaoh came into being, he was the one who was scared that the Jews were too numerous in Egypt, and he put them into enslavement. That's the first time in history when it was recorded. And subsequent to that, eventually, through so many different empires and conquests of anti-Semites against the Jews, the last anti-Semite conquest was Christianity and Islam. And it's not going to stop there. It's going to continue until the end of the earth. Even after Islam, if Islam ever disappears and Christianity will disappear, something else is going to replace the anti-Semitism.
Well, Jews, you're right. Jews don't fight back, at least in America. That's why so many are left wing. So many, it's like, ooh, don't hit, don't holler, don't hurt me. It's because of 2,000 years of being second class citizens and being a bunch of nobodies, and the Christian world picked on them and picked on them until they got very comfortable in being afraid and second class citizens. And that carries over, at least in America and Europe today. Finally, Israel has a state where you can't push them around. And it's better to have a state of Israel that the whole world hates than an Auschwitz that the whole world loves.
That's a very prolific saying. You're right.
I didn't come up with it. It's Rabbi Kahana.
Oh, really? Rabbi Kahana, but he was very prolific. So essentially, was also going back to Islam. I have a book I picked up, the Quran. It's an English interpretation of the Quran, and I mean I can show you that when you pick it up, it has all these. Surahs and hadiths, and it skips chapters. You read one little version, that's like version 11, it skips 12, it skips 13, and then it goes into 14. Now, what kind of a book is that omits and deliberately deletes things in English so other people who read it will not know what it truly means?
That's why I said read the Hadiths. It's just as violent and just as stupid, but at least it makes sense. It follows an order. It's so much easier to read than the Quran because if you read the Quran, your eyes will be spinning around in circles if they don't roll back into your brain first.
So the thing is, I was kind of playing around and doing some analysis. Is that do you know how many times Israel is mentioned in the Quran?
I believe it's 44 times.
So yeah, okay, that's about right. Do you know how many times Palestine is mentioned in the Quran?
Zero.
How many times is El Quds mentioned in the Quran?
Oh, that I don't know.
No,
That's Jerusalem.
that's Jerusalem. It's not. It's not mentioned at all.
Well, Muhammad was never there. He had a
It,
dream that he was there.
yeah. So essentially, what happens is that all these, all these surahs, and I believe, I think it's Surah 27, 29. I can't remember exactly. It's been a while. It says that the Jews do belong in Israel. Israel does belong to the Jews. It says that. However, it has to be under Islamic dominion. Uh, they have to pay homage to Islam. But it, that's what it states that the Jews do belong in Israel.
Well, the Jews under Islam, they were forced to wear the yellow star. That's where Hitler got it from. That it came from Islam. The Muslims would tolerate Jews there as long as they wore the yellow star. And Christians had to wear a belt around their pants. So that way, the Jewish star pointed out that's a Jew, and the belt pointed out that's a Christian. And that's what being a second class citizen under Islam is. But eventually, if as long as you keep paying the tax, they may let you live, but eventually they're going to turn on you and kill you. All they have to do is get one person who says they got the call from Allah, and they'll start killing all infidels, who is everybody who's not Muslim. And the Muslims are just as happy to kill each other if they don't have infidels to kill. The Shia and the Sunnis are always at each other's throat. The Shia, when Muhammad died, the Shia believed his successor should come from his own line, whereas the Sunnis believed the most valiant general should take over. That was Abu Bakr, B-A-K-R. And that's the difference, and they're willing to kill each other over that.
May God fulfill their blessing. And so I cannot figure out when Israel went, they bombed the Hamas headquarters in Qatar, why Trump became so upset about it. And then he decided to come up with this executive order that if anybody bombs Qatar, it's the same as bombing America. And then he will take military action against anybody who tries to bomb Qatar. Meanwhile, what do the Qataris do? They invest, like you say, billions of dollars here in the United States to promote all these Islamic and Arab causes like CARE and many and the universities sponsored Islamic courses of lies, and so on. It behooves me, what has gone through Trump's head? Why did he create such a stupid edict like that? I have no idea. And I supported the guy.
I did
I,
too. I supported him as the lesser of two evils. I knew he was not strong enough. He's the good things he's doing, he's stronger than I thought he would be. These are things I thought he should have done in his first term. But he's not strong enough. And the position of president is not strong enough to turn this country around. But he did one thing I thought was reprehensible, not just, and it's related to what you said about Qatar. They are going to be training military pilots from Qatar in
right.
Idaho.
In Idaho, I heard,
How
I
did it
read
work
that.
out the last time we trained pilots that were Muslim? This time with military planes, they won't even have to kill themselves. They can just drop bombs on our buildings. Is this insanity? And then the other thing he said was that was what he did. And the thing he said that really bothers me a lot is that he said he wants to see these long-time feuds over in the Middle East, these tribal feuds. And I'm thinking to myself, he doesn't have a clue about Islam. Who's advising him? Because he has no idea. And it seems like if an advisor told him that, The advisor has no idea. They should bring me to Washington to advise them on Islam. There might be a few little tribal skirmishes, but this is Islam. They're killing each other. They're killing infidels.
Well,
Islam is, wait, just let
maybe
me finish it. Islam is a religion, Islam is a political system, and Islam is a death cult. And those three things make up the full total Islam. Not that there's official separations, but you could look at it as three separate entities combined into one.
maybe Jesus Trump, which was nailed not to the cross in his first term. He was nailed to the courts, had his second coming, and now he's a Messiah. And because he created this 20-point peace plan, this Messiah, in his second coming, has decided that there's going to be peace in the world and everybody's going to be able to smoke that peace pipe up in the mountains and sing kumbaya together. All the Jews and the Muslims and the Christians will all get together because the Messiah Trump had made an executive order that this is the way things are going to be.
Well, you can try and force peace, but you can't enforce peace.
Yeah,
Muslims are going
well,
to do what Muslims do. And it's like the song says, a country and western song, it's just a matter of time.
that's true. I mean, look, it's so what I call a castle in the sky that that has no foundation, and it's going to come tumbling down. This castle in the sky of his. He wanted to make peace between Ukraine and Russia, and look, nothing how that's turning out. He's taking one of the oldest antagonists in world history, the Jews and the Muslims, and even Jews and Christians, and he wants to bring them together to make peace. Well, that's a pipe dream. It's based on, I don't know if it's based on naivety or is it based on ego or whatever it is, but he may be able to exert pressure on Bibi and force him to do certain things, or he may not, but it's not going to be everlasting. Like you said, he does not understand the Muslim mentality. He has no clue how they will turn on any proposed any proposals made by what they call infidels. Yeah,
And
you're
now
100.
Israel is going to release 2,000 homicidal maniacs, turn them loose on the world. What they should do is put a chip in each one so they can monitor where they go and they'll find all the tunnels and see all the hideouts.
No,
But
they should send him to France and yeah, let them live with Macron.
yeah,
You know,
every country that is condemning Israel
they should have
is getting Israel's enemies to live with them.
yeah, they should get yeah, that's right. That would be a blessing. Let them let them put up with the consequence. And, it's horrible. It's really logic inverted on its head by how the Western world has viewed Israel, the way they are turned against Israel and so forth, democracy, all for the sake of garnering support and Arab votes in their own or Muslim votes in the communities and more funding from Qatar.
And there will be a time when good is called evil and evil is called good.
Okay, we're running out of time now. So let's go ahead and call this quits for right now. I'm